Hello everyone, welcome to Fullmoon Movies. John Woo's Bullet in the Head is not an action film that wants to entertain you, it wants to confront you. It wants to exhaust you, bruise you, and then sit quietly beside you as the consequences sink in. Often described as Woo's most personal and most painful film, Bullet in the Head is where heroic gunplay collapses into moral trauma, where brotherhood is tested not by loyalty slogans but by survival under impossible circumstances. Set against the chaos of the late 1960s Hong Kong and the Vietnam War, the film follows three childhood friends, Ben, Frank, and Paul, small-time hustlers whose youthful bravado and dreams of escape slowly harden into desperation. What begins as a familiar Wu setup of brotherhood and crime quickly mutates into something far more uncomfortable. Now, this is not a better tomorrow, this is what happens after idealism dies. Tony Leung Chiu Wai's Ben is the emotional anchor of the film. Unlike Wu's most mythic heroes, Ben is fragile, reactive, and visibly haunted. Leung plays him not as a charismatic outlaw, but as a man constantly negotiating fear, guilt, and moral hesitation. His eyes do most of the acting, quietly absorbing betrayal, violence, and regret long before he ever verbalizes it. As the story unfolds, Ben becomes less a protagonist and more a witness to the erosion of everything he believed friendship was meant to. Now, Vice Lee Frank, in contrast, represents the seductive pull of power. He adapts quickly to violence not because he enjoys it, but because he understands it has currency. Frank's transformation is gradual and deeply unsettling. Wu does not portray him as a villain in the traditional sense. Instead, Frank becomes a product of war, someone who internalizes brutality as logic. His choices feel pragmatic, even reasonable, until you realize how far he has drifted from the boy he once was. Jackie Cheung's Paul is the tragic fuse that ignites the film's emotional collapse. Cheung gives one of the most devastating performances in Wu's entire career. Paul's breakdown in Vietnam, his loss of innocence, his physical and psychological unraveling, is filmed without romanticism. There is no slow motion poetry here, no heroic framing, just prolonged suffering. Paul's arc in this point is where the bullet in the head stops being a crime epic and becomes a war trauma film. Wu's direction is deliberately restrained compared to his later Hollywood work. When the violence arrives, it is abrupt and punishing. Gunfights are not staged as ballet, they are chaotic, messy, and terrifying. The Vietnam sequences are particularly feel closer to Platoon than to Hard-Boiled. Now, civilians die without ceremony, friends turn on each other without speeches. The film insists that violence leaves no room for myth. Cinematically, Bullet in the Head is raw and intimate. The camera lingers on faces after violence, not during it. Wu repeatedly cuts away from action to focus on reaction, such as shaking hands, vacant stares, breathless silence. Now, this is a film obsessed with aftermath. Every gunshot echoes long after the sound fades. Thematically, Bullet in the Head is about the illusion of brotherhood under pressure. Wu dismantles the romantic idea that loyalty survives all conditions. War, greed, fear, and survival instincts erode moral bonds faster than any betrayal speech ever could. The Vietnam War is not just a backdrop. In fact, it is a moral furnace that strips these characters down to their core selves. There is also a clear political undercurrent. Wu made this film in the shadow of Hong Kong's impending handover, and the anxiety is palpable. The sense of displacement, the fear of losing identity, and the trauma of being caught between systems larger than oneself all bleed into the narrative. Vietnam becomes a symbolic hellscape where idealism goes to die, much like Wu, who feared Hong Kong might. Now, by the time the film reaches its final act, reconciliation feels impossible. The emotional damage is too deep. When violence returns to Hong Kong, it carries the weight of everything that happened abroad. This is not revenge, it's inevitability. The ending offers no catharsis, only resignation. Wu denies the audience the comfort of heroic closure, and that refusal is precisely what gives the film its power. Upon its original release in 1990, Bullet in the Head was a commercial failure in Hong Kong. Reportedly, it earned only Hong Kong 19 million, a disappointment compared to Wu's more accessible hits. Audiences expecting another stylish action spectacle were confronted instead with despair and moral ambiguity. Over time, however, the film has been reassessed as one of Wu's most important work, where a film that prioritizes emotional truth over crowd-pleasing bravura. Now, seeing Bullet in the Head in 4K through Shout Factory's restorations finally gives the film the visual dignity it deserves. The grain structure is intact, preserving the film's gritty texture. Skin tones looks natural, shadow details is vastly improved, and nighttime scenes retain depth without crushing the blacks. Now, this is not a glossy remaster, but it respects the film's raw aesthetic. The audio presentation similarly flavors the clarity of a spectacle. Gunshots are sharp but not exaggerated. Dialogue still remains front focus, allowing performances, especially Tony Leung's restrained delivery, to actually breathe. The restoration feels archival rather than revisionist, which suits the film perfectly. Shout Factory release also reinforces the film's legacy through contextual bonus features, helping the modern viewers understand why Bullet in the Head sits apart from Wu's most famous works. This is not the film that made him a global action icon, but it is the film that revealed his emotional limits. Ultimately, Bullet in the Head endures because it refuses comfort. It asks whether friendship can survive moral compromise. It asks whether violence ever truly serves loyalty. And it answers quietly and brutally that some wounds never close. This is John Woo at his most vulnerable. No operatic heroics, no romantic myth-making, just broken men carrying memories they can't escape. And that is why Bullet in the Head remains not just one of Woo's greatest films, but one of the most honest anti-war crime dramas ever made. Now, this movie is a must-watch.